Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of my three-part series of different types of fighter jets. And today we're going to be looking at the F5, the Northrop F5 Tiger. Now, as you may know, I have changed my podcast name to Fox 2, and I feel like this is a good pick for this one since it's considering a fighter jet. With all that said and done, let's get started right now. So, the Northrop F5 was designed for a supersonic light fighter. As you can see here, it is a different type of light fighter, a lot of vision around the airplane and fuselage, good amount of armament, and good amount of speed and agility. They were designed and projected to be around, first started in the late 1950s, of course by Northrop. There are two main models for this aircraft, the F5A and the F5B, otherly known as the Freedom Fighter. The design team wrapped a very highly aerodynamic fighter around two compact, high thrust General Electric J85s. Now, as you can see here, you can tell it is a high speed fighter. It's got that coating on the nose to prevent radar and prevent the avionics from not being able to detect what it needs to be. This aircraft really is different compared to like the F4 Phantom II, which is a little bit bigger, and it costs a lot less to produce and operate. A lot of the maintenance charges were very cheap, so it was very easy to fix. It was very easy to access and very easy to see where things go and how it performs. Even though it was primarily designed for day missions and day operations, over the years it definitely became capable of night operations. We'll get to that later. The F-5A entered service in the early 1960s, of course during the Cold War. Over 800 of them were produced through 1972. 800 is a good amount of number for this type of aircraft. Though at the time, the Air Force did not have need for a light fighter, considering the F4 Phantom was basically taking over this type of area. So they turned it into a trainer. Yes, they turned it into a training aircraft, the T-38 Talon. This was interesting because they can use the mainframe model, and it was one of the first jet models they used for a training purpose from the same airframe that's combat ready in a short amount of time. That's interesting. You look at the role of a light fighter, you know it's agile immediately. But when an aircraft is mass produced during a short amount of time, it's pretty good. And it came into service in the 60s, which, of course, with the Cold War and Vietnam and stuff going on, it really, really turned some heads. The primary users of this aircraft, as Wiki states, you got the United States Navy, of course, Republic of China Air Force, Republic of Korea Air Force, and the armies of Iran and a bunch of other countries spread around the Far East. Even though they were only produced for 38 years, or I cut that back, around 28 years, they are still widely known around the world as trainers. And they're still good aircraft. You can still see plenty of them around. I saw one in Oshkosh about 3 to 4 years ago now. Now, after winning its competition to actually go into service, they wanted to upgrade the aircraft to make it actually be able to withstand everyone going around and be able to compete with some of the other aircraft that were involved. So then we have the F-5E Tiger II. Now, the F-5E Tiger II was built in 1972. It included more powerful engines, of course, larger fuel capacity, greater wing area, and improved leading edge extensions for better turn rates. So now if you look at this picture, you can tell the leading edge is down. The reason why the leading edge is down right now is to help, and the flaps are back, is to help the aircraft lift. With a light agile fighter like this, it's probably pretty quick to get in the air. And aerodynamically, that is an awesome feature that a lot of airplanes do and use when they take off. It was primarily used by American allies, of course, but it remained in the U.S. service support training exercises. It's a phenomenal trainer. You can talk to a lot of pilots and listen to a lot of documentaries on pilots. The T-38 was a phenomenal training aircraft. A total of 1,400 Tiger IIs were built before production ended in '87. There are still more than 3,800 F-5s and T-38s flying around, but over 400 aircraft of these were in service as of 2021. It's pretty impressive for an older airplane. Of course, it was designed and dedicated to a bunch of variants. The F-5 Tiger I, which was a reconnaissance aircraft. The F-5 also served as a starting point for a series of design studies, which resulted, wait for it, in the design of the F-17 and the very famous naval aircraft, the F-A-18, one of my favorites. The Northrop F-20 Tigershark was even developed, and it was advanced enough to succeed the F-5E, which was ultimately canceled because of export. The F-20, phenomenal airplane, was decommissioned and ultimately lost to the F-16. Now, before we get started, I'd like to show you guys what the differences of that aircraft were. Say hello to the F-20 Tigershark. One, the main difference between the F-5 and the F-20 is it's a single engine aircraft. So you're getting rid of the dual engines and you're making it a single engine airplane. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth with this one because this one sadly did not last as long. But the one thing I do like about the Tigershark, which originally was going to be the G model F5, is a lot of updates. You know, Northrop wanted to create an airplane that can compete with the F-16 with General Dynamics at the time. Now, if you look at the way the air-to-air capability of these aircraft are, it will surprise you that this airplane was designed to be able to be outmatched in certain capabilities with armament and hardpoints. The F-16 way outclassed it in hardpoints for weapon carrying and stuff. So really, all in all, it did a good job of what it needed to be done, but you knew it wasn't going to beat the F-16 in any type of issues like that. Now, when you look at the F-20, you know, it gives you a good idea of what Northrop wanted to make a lighter fighter. They wanted to make this fighter. As we go back to the F-5, there are many things about this airplane that I've always found fascinating, and that was the look of it. A lot of airplanes have the standard look. They all look different or they all look the same. But the F-5, when it came into service, it was different. When it was designed, they wanted to make it sleek. They wanted to make it look cool. They wanted to make it expensive. But it is not an expensive airplane. And the evolution of this design came from a lot of hardworking engineers that wanted to make something that was fast. Now, using a pair of the J-85s as the baseline, the team began considering a series of prospective designs. They didn't want to mount the engines like the original engines are. They wanted to put them in the rear of the airplane with a nice intake flow in the front. Now, when they started bringing this into production, you can really see the differences between the A, the B, and the E models. The E model, like I said before, when they started prospecting different designs and variants, it was a two-seater, and it had a lot more capabilities with nicer radars, dual control and display systems, and the range was a lot longer. Now, with all this being said, the F-20 being developed, really, they when they moved away from the F-20, they wanted to upgrade the F-5s. And let me tell you, there were a lot of them. With the most significant one being the new planar array radar. So instead of being 10 miles, it's now 20. They basically upped them in the numbers. They added the AN, APQ, A167, to replace the 157 series, which makes sense. And they included the A69 to replace a lot of the other ones. Now, most nations chose not to upgrade them. I mean, it's expensive. When you upgrade an aircraft, no matter what, it's going to be expensive. But a lot of the E models were still being produced because they knew they were going to be really well sold into a lot of these other smaller countries, including Switzerland. This picture, you can tell it's clearly Switzerland with the logos, and the Swiss Air Force really, really uses this airplane. Now, in 1979, Singapore at this time operated 49 of these, the S models, which is a single seater, and the T, which was used for was a twin seater, which was actually technically one of the last models of this airplane. So you start with an Alpha series all the way to a Tango series aircraft. That's pretty good, considering a lot of airplanes don't last that long. Now, with the updated cockpits, with the multifunction displays, and compatibility with AMRAAMs, so you're getting air-to-air missiles, and Rafael Python air-to-air missiles, this aircraft is definitely now a capable interceptor. The really cool thing about this airplane, it was used a lot with NASA. The F-5E was giving a modified fuselage shape for its employment in this shaped sonic boom demonstration. Let me show you a quick picture of that. So when NASA designed this airplane, it was really cool. So they designed a project they've created called the Shape Sonic Boom Demonstration Program. So designed by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Now, where this gets interesting is this aircraft was designed to actually quiet down sonic boom. It's really interesting. They were trying to reduce the sonic boom with this aircraft. And at the time, 2003, it became the most expensive study on the sonic boom. After about roughly 1,000 to 1,500 recordings, and they had to find the decibel numbers on that, and it is remarkable and it is fascinating to think that they can design an airplane to quiet down the sonic boom. You notice from the design of this one, it's shaped kind of like the original F5. It's still got the same engines, but still got the same wings, but it's got a different fuselage, as you can see. So now they designed this to create different patterns. And they did this with the F-15 as well. But they wanted to clarify which one was testing better, which one was, actually working. Because if you look at it, it's really an interesting piece of art and piece of work. Now, when you see an airplane, you automatically think, okay, we're designing something to fly across the world. And they designed it to be well put together to fly around the entire world in a quieter, you know, design. So when you look at the F5 and what it has done with, NASA and what it's done with the military, it is mind blowing. And there's a really, really cool quote from a major general in the Singapore Air Force who said the F5 earned a reputation for a jet that was hard to discern in the air. And when one finally saw it, it was often after a missile or a gun killed had already been called. I mean, that's remarkable. An aircraft like this that is proven to push up to what its standards were, amazing. Now, the big thing about this is it was cheap, but it was cheap enough that you can really use it for an amazing, you can really use it. And a lot of countries took advantage of this and they used it to their own, abilities. And, we look at the operators. Let's see. You got the Botswana Defense Force. You got the Honduran Air Force. You got the Jordanian Air Force, the Kenyan Air Force, the Royal Moroccan Air Force, the Indonesian Air Force, the Austrian, the Hellenic, South Korean, the Thai, and the Turkish Air Force, the Brazilian Air Force, the Chilean Air Force. I mean, you can go on and on of how many countries use this airplane. I mean, even before the Canadians had a model, the Canadair CF5, the Greeks had plenty of these. The North Yemens had this, the Norwegians. Basically, every country in the world had an F5 at one point. And that really puts perspective of how popular this airplane was and is used today. Now, before we, you know, talk more in depth about its service history as of today, there's one thing I like to discuss, and the reason why it's one of my favorite, if not one of my favorite aircraft, is because of how, you know, it's not popular in a lot of people's eyes. Yeah, the Air Force nerds and Air Force pilots and naval pilots and aviation enthusiasts, people know the airplane, but people don't take it to a grain of salt compared to like all the other ones like the F-15s, the F-16s, the F-18s, because they don't really they don't think about this one off the top of their heads. Now, of course, I like the way it is noticed, and it's been in um, a lot of movies. Considering Top Gun was one of the main ones where it was the MiG 28, quote unquote, which never existed. But I mean, it's a phenomenal airplane to use as a enemy airplane, especially a stunt plane in a movie. Now, the cool thing about this Tiger II and the Tigers, especially the Tiger II, is it had a good amount of armament. Now, the general characteristics of this airplane are pretty impressive considering the size of it. Now, this is going to go off the one-seater ones with the one crew member. Crew 1, the length was about 48 feet, the wingspan was about 26 feet, add about an extra foot with missiles. The height was about 13 feet, about maybe 13 and a half feet. The wing area was 186. The airfoil was a NACA 65 Alpha, which is a very, very thin style airfoil. Pretty impressive airfoil, if you can ask me. The empty weight was about 9,500 pounds. The gross weight was about 15,745 pounds. And that's with nothing. The max takeoff weight was 24,075, which is impressive for a light fighter. Now, I like that the fact that it had internal fuel and external fuel, so you can actually drop the tanks. It had drop tanks, external hardpoints. I love external hardpoints with drop tanks. The power plant was operated by two J85 G21 afterburning turbojet engines, with producing up to 5,000 pounds of thrust, 3,500 pounds of thrust each day. And that's dry. That's not adding afterburner. Afterburner about 5,000. Now the maximum speed was about Mach 1. The maximum cruise was 0.98 at 36,000. And all these are at 36,000. Stall speed, 124. You can go on and on about these things. The armament, 2 by 20 millimeter M39A2 revolver cannons, 7 hardpoints. I mean, this is a phenomenal aircraft with 7 total hardpoints. As you can see in this picture, it has only 2 at this point because the other 2 are not mounted. Avionics, state-of-the-art avionics, and yeah, it literally, you can go on and on with 7,000 pounds of different types of weaponry, fuel tanks. As you can see in this naval one, you can see the hook were attached to the aircraft carrier on landing. And I take that back. You can see the third hard point in the center of the fuselage right there. Usually there's either a bomber or a drop tank. So with this F5, it is really, really hard to downgrade such a phenomenal airplane that was brought up in a really, really well time because of the production value and the perks. And to this day, I still think that it could have been what it could have been. It's a phenomenal trainer. It's a phenomenal aircraft, and with what it's being used as, and people fly it in air shows. Like I said earlier, I saw it in Oshkosh. People fly them in air shows. I really like that. I think that's pretty freaking awesome. Now, at the end of my video, I'd like to say thank you for all my listeners for checking this air episode out, ending my 3-part series. And I will definitely be updating and adding newer episodes throughout the week. Thank you very much, guys. And if I don't get through it to the week, it'll be every month. Thank you for listening to this video, and check out my other videos that are listed below. Thank you guys and have a good night.